After a fun week at PGA National, we head on over to Arnie's house for the 2026 Arnold Palmer Invitational. Let's go. Welcome back to the 19th hole. Jake here, as always, joined again by Mike. As I mentioned, we had a fun week over at PGA National. How did the week turn out for you?
Week was all right. I actually was in France skiing for the weekend.
Show off.
Landed in time to catch the back nine of the COG. And I'm probably fighting a little bit of jet lag as we record here, but I need you to catch me a little bit on what happened this week.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good week over here. Just more reason for you guys to join the In Between Media Golf family. If you guys were tailing me this week, I had two separate cards on Austin Smotherman. The full unit card I cashed out at over 50 units of profit. Held on to the 0.1 unit card that I had just for the sweat. Didn't work out there. But we had a 44 unit week overall. So we had a great time over there. And that's what you get with the IBT Golf family. It's a great opportunity to join the conversation with our viewers and analysts, get free entry into our memorabilia giveaways, as well as entry into the PGA One and Done contest. Speaking of that One and Done contest, here is the leaderboard as it sits today. That's right. My brother is still in first place. However, you may notice that number did not shift from last week. We're catching up to him. He had a bad week. We need to take advantage. The producer extraordinaire Trash Sandwiches in second place. Mike, she has told me that her secret formula is she just picks whichever golfer we tell her to put in the thumbnail of this video every week, and she's doing well so far. Next up, we have Timbo Slice. That is our final player, over 1 million in earnings thus far. Royal Slade in fourth at 938,000. Myself sitting in fifth at 893,000. My buddy Tony sitting at a cool 888. My buddy Jed sitting at 534. Go for JD sitting at 454. The boss man himself, Seth Woolcock, sitting at 439K. And then Mike and a few others are sitting at sub 422K. It happens. You know, you were in France, you were busy.
I saw my guy J.A.R.V.I.S climbing up the leaderboard earlier in the week, and then all of a sudden I'm making 73K on the week. So I'm not sure what happened there.
J.A.R.V.I.S happened. That's what happened. But with the In Between Media family, as mentioned, you get full access to our betting model as well as our full betting cards for only $3.99 a month or $36 for the year. That also includes our football family, racing family, which is off to a hot start thus far, as well as our entertainment family over on the entertainment show, Popcorn and Root Beer. Check it out if you haven't. I have not missed a pick on Kalshi yet this year, so looking to keep that streak going. If you guys are interested, it is in-betweenmedia.com/chat or at the link in the episode description. But as you mentioned, we got to catch up on this past week. You were out of town. Let's get you caught up. Let's head on over to the news. So as we talked about with the COG this past weekend, it was a contest to say the least. Luckily for the winner, Nico Echavarria, who himself played a great week of golf. Shane Lowry decided to go to in and out just after the 15th hole. He parred that par 3 at 15, said, you know what, let's get a little double. The golf gods just misheard him, and he went double bogey to drop 4 strokes in 2 holes to end up losing to Echavarria by 2 strokes. It's a tough scene for Shane Lowry, but it's important to note how well Nico played in this tournament.
You know, golf media makes it seem like there wasn't a winner of this golf tournament. There was just a loser. all the coverage is on Shane Lowry. And I wanted to start with just reminding the fans that Nico Echavarria won this golf tournament, and he played fantastic on Sunday. He made an amazing birdie on 17, which he ended up, gives him a 2-shot cushion at the end of the day. But we should not forget that he was the winner of this golf tournament. Yep. I also love the in and out reference for going double. That's an incredible reference. I saw a different in and out reference for Shane Lowry in terms of what induced his effective vomiting down the stretch. And I thought that's where you were going, but I love the reference for back-to-back doubles in and out.
Thank you. He did not, he did order his fries well done. He made sure to get him right there, but the double. But as we mentioned, it's important to note, Nico Echavarria had 3 bogeys the entire golf tournament, all 3 of those coming on Friday, 0 bogeys throughout the entire weekend, goes 63, 72, 66, 66. Like, Nico won this tournament. Yes, it's fun to make, reference what happened to Shane Lowry, who was 5 under at that point in the day, entering the 16th hole.
I think you also have to realize that not all 5 unders are created equal. He effectively just about topped a drive on 6 that should have gone in the water and somehow didn't. He makes eagles 10. He makes a 45-foot bomb for birdie earlier in the round 2. So if you believe in statistical averages and the idea of regressing to the mean and all that, I'm not saying that Shane Lowry should make back-to-back doubles down the stretch to close out a golf tournament. Although I think the thing that's most painful is all the Shane Lowry haters online leading up to this week, barking at his 12-1 odds. This guy hasn't won in the U.S. in 10 plus years. Basically, end up being right at the end of the day. But he was playing well beyond wherever he was mentally. He was playing well beyond that, the first 16 holes or the first 15 holes. So it's obviously was really hard to see it come crashing down, but Nico, he hung in there. And I think the thing too that started to confuse me a little bit was as Nico was waiting in the scoring table to see what Lowry did coming down 18, Taylor Moore hung out there for a while. And I was trying to figure out, and I wasn't really paying attention to golf Twitter, but apparently I missed the whole Nico Echavarria, Taylor Moore connection, over the past 6 years. Are you filled in on this?
A little bit, but why don't you fill in the audience?
And I don't have all the details, and I don't want to turn this into some, kind of moral discussion on what these guys did as college kids, but they might have done some things that weren't okay. They both played golf together at Arkansas and got in a little bit of trouble with the law.
Yes, they did. I found that
one night. And Taylor Moore got off okay. Nico got his hand slapped. And I didn't realize these guys were bros. So there you go. Coming down the stretch. They played together on Sunday. And Taylor Moore hung around to support his guy. Ultimately finishes in 2nd place.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to stick around and support your buddy when you yourself are, end up tied for 2nd, still taking home $726,000. It's not like he was sitting here 67th place like Joe Highsmith taking home 20 grand, which I don't know, for you and me, taking home 20 grand for a week of golf doesn't sound too bad. But comparatively, when you're making 700,000 more than that, being able to sit there and root on your buddy, hope for the best. And obviously you're not rooting for other golfers to fail, but you are rooting for the cards to fall in your friend's favor in that situation. But huge win for Nico. Going to shoot him up the FedEx Cup point board for the year. Going to help secure his spots on tour for the foreseeable future as a winner as well, and should help get him into most of, if not all, the majors this year. So great for Nico there. We're not going to stop talking about things that feel good. And I don't know about you, but in all, a stairway to Augusta is pretty good as well. Alistair Docherty ends up winning on the Korn Ferry Tour. Are you familiar with kind of the lore behind Docherty?
I am now.
Yeah. So
you generally find a way to get me to broaden my professional golf horizons, and we dig deep on this show, which I appreciate. But thank you for surfacing this. Tell me, why is Alistair Docherty a famous dude?
Yeah. So Docherty he's a true journeyman of the professional golf scene. He has many different kind of points to his story that really stand out. He qualified for the U.S. Open less than 2 weeks after being injured in a car accident following a practice round at the Korn Ferry Visit Knoxville Open. He withdrew from the event. He did return the week after, but was then able to get the win this past weekend at the Argentina Open. This win secures him his place in the Masters this year as the winner of a national open. But Docherty's story goes way, way back. We're talking about a guy who, was playing in the U.S. Amateur, years back. He's one of 11 Korn Ferry Tour members that'll be in the field at the U.S. Open this year as well. But Docherty was a journeyman in every sense of the way. He hit a point where between tournaments, he didn't have the money to get a hotel. The dude was going to be sleeping in his car for a few nights. If you are not familiar with Ryan over at the Monday Q Info Twitter page, his Twitter handle is Aces of the Golf.
No, I think it's a case of Mondays.
A case of the Golf.
Case of the Golf, yeah.
Case of the Golf 1 on Twitter. He's a looper. He's been around in the golf scene for quite a while. Always bumps up the people who Monday qualify. So he's having a tough year with the relief of or the loss of quite a few of these Monday qualifiers that are going on. But he brought up Alistair's story and essentially was able to raise enough money for Docherty to continue his professional golf career and not have to be sleeping in his car to be able to do so. So he is, he really is the, kind of the American dream of the golf world, tolling on mini tours, Korn Ferry Tour, and being able to, secure your spot into Augusta, secure your spot into the US Open. It's got to feel really good for a guy who a few years ago, like I said, was getting ready to sleep in his car.
Do you know who sponsors Alistair?
Who does? Oh,
Barstool.
Isn't it Barstool? Yep, Barstool. That happened, I believe, after Monday Q Info. Ryan over there shouted out, kind of talked about his story. Barstool brought him on as an athlete for them.
He was looping at one of the courses that Riggs is a member at in Arizona, and they just bumped into each other, and their Barstool is paying him, $50,000 or whatever that he needed to cover his expenses for a part of the season. And yeah, it is a great story. And I guess I'll ask you this question. Not that either of us are ever going to get a chance to play Augusta. I mean, it seems fairly out of the question at this point, but how do you feel about these guys that turn down invitations to play Augusta because they want to earn their way to do it? I mean, Alistair's earned his way to do it now.
Yeah.
Would you wait?
Hell no. I respect it. But if I do something, I mean, getting an invitation to somewhere like Augusta, it means you did something to earn your way, right? They're not, for the most part, they're not giving these invitations out willy nilly. It's not like they're sitting here Bobby Fairways over at Bob Does Sports. He'd be great for content. Let's invite him. No, they're inviting players who have earned their chance to play here. And second off, it's a major. It's got a lot of money going into there. Especially if I'm a guy who is in a position like a Docherty, like some of the another guy that we'll talk about here in a minute. If I'm on some of these smaller tours, even the Korn Ferry Tour, you can make good money, but it's a grind. You're driving from one tournament to another. It's not like you're some of these guys on the PGA Tour that are private jetting it up everywhere or traveling in an RV. You're in your Honda Civic, bags in the back, driving from one place to another, driving overnight, sleeping in, hotels or motels. There was a fun YouTube video a few years ago when it was still the web.com tour. So that's how old it is at this point. But they're talking about 3-4 guys sharing a hotel room because of the prices that it is out there. And you feel good for their caddies as well, because their caddies are oftentimes just taking $1,000 a week. And sure, you could spend your weeks throughout the year doing worse things than caddying on a professional golf tour, but it's a lot of work for potentially not a lot of gain. There's weeks where you're paying your caddy more than you're making as a player on these tours. So if you give me the opportunity to go play in a major at Augusta, knowing that if I make the cut, I'm basically securing probably 4 or 5 more seasons of professional golf. If I make the cut, I'm going to do that every time. I get wanting to earn your way there and get there on the FedEx Cup points or your world golf ranking or whatever it may be. But No, if you invite me, I'm going.
I agree. Yeah, and I think so. I think I might have mixed this up. Is Alistair? He's picking up his. This is a Corn Ferry win, but it's our next guy that picked up the Augusta invite.
Maybe I mixed them both up. I thought Docherty gets into Augusta too. Regardless, he's in the U.S. Open. I know that much. Maybe I mixed it up. I probably did. Great point. Great way to transition. You ever been to Augusta, J.A.R.V.I.S? Please tell me you get this reference.
No.
That's fine. Iron Man's suit or his AI is J.A.R.V.I.S. And in one of the movies, he says, J.A.R.V.I.S is like, where to? And he's like, you ever been to Tennessee, J.A.R.V.I.S? And he, transports it.
I got the J.A.R.V.I.S part. Okay, I got the J.A.R.V.I.S part. I was like, did he actually say Augusta in that movie?
He did not. It was Tennessee in the movie. But Casey J.A.R.V.I.S getting the win at the Investec SA Open on the DP World Tour. I know he gets the invite to Augusta, hence the picture of him holding the Augusta flag up here. But he played a great week of golf as well. The DP World Tour, we don't talk about it a ton, being that this is the European tour. We talk about it certainly more when there's, the Rory McIlroys, the Tommy Fleetwoods, Matt Fitzpatrick's playing over there. But even when you are not talking about a week like that, like there's still some very big names, some names that people will recognize that are in those fields every single week. Just some names, as we scroll down the board that may be familiar to some people. Matteo Manassero had quite a few starts on the PGA Tour last year. Dean Burmeister is a big up-and-coming player over there as well. Patrick Reed was in the field. Matt Fitzpatrick's brother, Alex Fitzpatrick, was a top 15 this week. But, anytime you can win a national open and secure your invite to a major, again, it feels great. DP World Tour, these guys are, doing pretty well over there financially. It certainly pays better than most of the feeder tours over here or mini tours over here, but still getting a win, being able to secure your chance to go to Augusta, it's got to be a feeling like no other.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I love that we're getting some of these guys on the map here that arguably, Casey J.A.R.V.I.S is a top 100 golfer in the world, however you want to look at it, OWGR or Data Golf Rankings. There's a number of guys that, as you start to pick through this, you realize can compete on the world stage, and we just don't see them in the media all that often. So I think it's great that Casey gets a win like this. We'll get to watch him on TV here in about a month and see what he can do at Augusta with guys that I know he can hang with. So this is, another cool story. And like you said, thanks for surfacing us a couple of great winners from the past week.
Absolutely. I always love to bring some insight to the world of golf. These aren't tournaments that we're typically betting heavily on. They're not ones we're talking about, but, especially these national opens, these matter and these can certainly help. And it's fun to talk about a guy like Casey J.A.R.V.I.S because he's a guy we will see on the PGA Tour sooner than later. He's only 22 years old, picked up his 4th professional win in his last 15 starts. He's got 2 wins on the Sunshine Tour, which is a smaller tour, to say the least. But not only did he win the South African Open, but he also won the Kenyan Open last week as well. 2 weeks ago. So he's got back-to-back wins over in Africa. If the DP World Tour is anything like I remember, one more win will guarantee his PGA Tour status for the next 2 years. So he's a name that you should at least get yourself familiar with, because we're going to be talking about him as a betting option more likely than not within the next couple of years. So certainly somebody that you want to keep your eye on. And with that being said, it's time for us to chat a little bit about this upcoming event that we have with the Arnold Palmer Invitational and the amazing golf course that is Bay Hill Golf Club. So let's get the caddy notes ready and get ready to roll. Bay Hill Club and Lodge, the affectionately known as Arnold's home, Arnold's kingdom, King Arnie's palace, whatever you want to call it. It is a great 4 days of golf that we are going to get. And Mike, I love the analysis that you always put together. So I'm going to turn it over to you for the overview of the course that is going to be our host for these next 4 days of golf.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Yes, this is a big boy golf course for the first real test of the season. You could say that Torrey Pines, maybe is that, but the Farmers just doesn't really turn up the conditions quite like Arnold Palmer did, while he was alive and setting up this golf course for these guys. It plays firm, it plays fast, and we get 3+ inch rough, which doesn't sound that long when you compare to US Opens, but these tour players don't typically play rough quite that long. And when you get this Bermuda rough with overseeded rye, it gets really nasty at Bay Hill. The winds can get rolling on this golf course. The one thing I like about that, when you get the firm, fast greens and the high winds, is you're asking players to do a lot with their shot making, right? Different trajectories, got to come in high, got to come in low, got to work it left and right. There's a lot of things you do with these big greens, some of the bigger greens that you're going to get on the PGA Tour this year. But when the winds are howling and they're this firm and fast, they're talking 13.5 on the stimp meter on these Bermuda greens. I think the conditions are just really, really tough. And so we're going to talk a little about skill profile. We're going to talk about stats. We're looking in the model. Where do you want to jump into first?
Yeah. So I think, as you mentioned with this course, firm, fast, long, rough, it gives very much a major type feel without being a major event. And being that this is a signature event, we only have 72 players, I believe, in the field. We're seeing some of the best out there. So what can players do to kind of set themselves apart this week versus others in the field, given that the field is strong top to bottom?
It is strong, and it's an understatement to say, well, I'm looking for guys that are elite tee to green players. That's typically what's going to perform well here. Well, surprise, signature event with 72 players. Almost every guy in this field is going to be an elite tee to green player. So we're going to dig through this to try to see where we can separate on what gets it done at Bay Hill. But typically, elite driver play and long iron play. Bay Hill actually does reward driving accuracy. One, because the rough is so long, it's going to make it difficult to hit into the greens. And two, if you're hitting from the rough and you're missing the greens, we don't have runoffs at this golf course that we've had at the Phoenix Open and at Torrey Pines. You're going to be having, it's like playing at Muirfield Village. You have difficult chips from long rough around these greens. You're going to end up with a lot of 10-foot putts, shots you just can't get close from 20 or 30 yards. So I'm like elite drivers and then long irons into the greens. We're talking 50% of the approach shots being over 175 yards or more, and 30% of them being over 200 yards or more. So again, we're hitting, now put all this together, you're hitting long irons into the wind, into firm, fast greens. So you're looking for guys that can keep the golf ball on the planet. If you want to sprinkle in some other parts of the stat profile, scrambling is a big deal, especially scrambling from the rough, as I mentioned. And then again, we're getting pure Bermuda greens, not this Bermuda overseeded with Poa Trivialis. We're in the Florida region, pure Bermuda greens. So again, you can look for guys that typically are those Bermuda specialists that thrive in Florida conditions.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, accuracy coming into play so heavily, distance coming into play so heavily, there's a benefit to being able to hit your driver far and straight here. Some courses, like over the last few weeks, we've run into a lot of dog legs, a lot of courses that don't let players necessarily take advantage of their distance, but this is certainly one. However, accuracy does tend to be a little more important here. These are the 14th narrowest fairways on average that we are going to see on tour this year. So realistically, the players are going to end up in the rough quite a bit. That said, if you can stay out of the rough, if you can hit the greens and hold them, most importantly, you can set yourself up for some pretty good numbers here. But scoring has historically been a little bit all over the place at Bay Hill.
I was going to say the same thing. And it really is a function of the wind. It comes down to, you're going to see winners anywhere from low single digits under par to probably not 20, but definitely 15 to 20. We've seen winners in the past. I mean, Scottie a couple of years ago was -15, and you had a run of guys being God, when Matt Everywood is winning this tournament, seeming every year, posting some deep numbers. But it really comes down to what the wins are going to look like. Have you done a forecast check yet?
I have. The winds look pretty tame thus far. It looks like as of this moment, as of we are recording this on Monday night at about 9 Central Time, the winds seem like they're going to be pretty tame. That said, we all know how Florida can be. Things can change on the drop of a hat, especially in Orlando, especially anytime you're more near the coast. Anything can change very, very quickly. When it comes to the wind, right now projected to be fairly consistent throughout the week, which is going to make things a little bit easier on players. There is some light rain in the forecast currently, both Friday and Saturday, but otherwise, winds around 10 miles an hour, maybe gusting up to 15 is what we're looking at. Low 80s temperature wise. So even if you're a player teeing off in the morning, it's not going to be quite the drastic temperature differences that we've seen of some of these weeks where the guys who are playing in the morning are playing in 55-degree weather, and the afternoon tee times get to enjoy a nice balmy 68. It's going to be fairly consistent throughout. So still going to be a factor. Like you said, with the wind, you're still going to have to be able to shape your shots. Even 10 miles an hour of wind is 1 to 2 clubs, depending on the angles and the surface that you're playing off of. So it's still going to impact the play of a lot of these players, but I'm projecting a little bit higher scoring event as of right now. I'm not projecting it to be one of the -5 winners that we've seen in the past 10 or so years.
Yeah, I buy that.
With this as well, kind of what stats are we both looking at? So I'll go with kind of what I put some weight on this week. So starting off, as we mentioned, strokes gained off the tee is going to be important here. You can go total driving. However, I went with a combination of strokes gained off the tee and then put some extra weight on driving distance as well. I think these players have enough history here. This is 3rd or 4th most predictive course, depending on how you look in terms of past success here. So a lot of the players I'm leaning on do have a good course history here, but the players know how to play out of this rough. It is hard, but I don't think it's going to be terrible. That said, I did also include strokes gained approach, both overall proximity and rough approach proximity from 200 yards and out. Think both of those numbers, as we saw, 30% from 200 plus, 50% from 175 plus. Both of those numbers are going to come into play quite a bit. Scrambling and sand save percentage, both numbers that I included this week. Our classic birdies are better. And bogey avoidance did include some par 3 scoring numbers here. These are the longest combination of par 3s that we will get in 2026. So did par 3 scoring both in the 200 to 225 and 225 plus bracket, just because depending on where they put these tees and these pins, these are going to stretch over 225 yards more often than we're going to see pretty much anywhere else. And then, as always, Bermuda greens, course history here, and comparable courses as well. I like the comps that you put together of Quail Hollow and Muirfield Village as very similar courses in terms of statistical profile. Those were 2 of the courses that I included in here. I did also include Torrey Pines South, Trump National, Doral, and Riviera as similar courses, because a lot of the things that we're talking about are kind of repeats or things that we'll see later this year from those venues.
Yeah, let me add a couple of other, I'll say, alternate stats to this. Shout out to the Rabbit Hole and the guys over at BetSperts that are giving us the ability to include some of these statistics. Yes. Did you know that you can add double bogey avoidance as well as bogey avoidance? Yep. I have to fact check my own fact checking on this. I saw a statistic that said that the average number of double bogeys per round was something like 1.9 at Bay Hill, and I thought that seemed shockingly high. But the reality is that as difficult as this golf course plays, there are doubles out there. And so I actually worked in some double bogey avoidance. I tried to, with a number of these statistics, tried to really lean on filtering against hard courses, long courses, and Bermuda putting. So really kind of laid that filter over a lot of the stats I was pulling in.
Just I should say how I did as well.
Yeah, just given how difficult this golf course is, I want to make sure that we're not only getting guys that hit the ball well off the tee and have strong long iron play, but they do it under tough conditions. And that's going to come up as we dig into some of the picks as well. Opportunities gained on hard courses. Again, I think one of the things that's going to be difficult is if we do assume this is going to be a relatively, let's call it somewhere in the minus 10 to minus 15 range for the winning, I got to make sure I'm picking guys that can give themselves enough opportunities to get there, not just play it safe and get in around, -5. I got to get enough opportunities to push this into double digits, meaning that I guess par 5 scoring, you probably work in here as well. I love the idea of getting the par 3 scoring as difficult as those plays. So which means you're going to have to make it up on the par 5s here, which are not overly difficult. So if we can find some guys that know how to take advantage there. And then the other thing that I could not find in BetSperts, so I have not yet worked this, and I know you can get it on the PGA Tour statistics, but apex height. And if you can find that in BetSperts for me, let me know. But if you can find apex height for your players, it generally gives you an understanding of how high their natural trajectory is. And this is a golf course where having a higher trajectory into the greens has typically helped. But I'll also toss in there that when it does get really windy, having someone that can go low and high and really manage the trajectory of their ball is going to be a big help too.
Yeah, I know on BetSperts, I don't know if there's an apex filter, but there is a launch angle filter, which filters down to the average launch angle of players. So for example, Keegan Bradley is has the lowest average launch angle in the field. Matt Fitzpatrick has the highest average launch angle in the field. And this is where this stat also becomes interesting, because we know these players are good enough to manipulate those stats. And we're talking about two of the guys with some of the strongest statistical fits and course histories for this field. And it all comes down to, are you having a day with your ball striking where you can manipulate that? Some players are naturally going to be higher ball flight players. Some players, Keegan, are naturally going to be lower ball flight players just based off of the swings that they produce. Cutters of the golf ball tend to play it a little bit higher. Drawers tend to play it a little bit lower on average. But it is something that is going to come into play. Another fun filter on BetSperts is spin rate. So you can kind of calculate guys who can hit it high and spin it well to keep greens, or guys who cannot spin it whatsoever. Looking at you, Billy Horschel, second lowest spin rate in the field. Funny enough, there is no one with the lowest spin rate for whatever reason when you filter it down. That's an interesting thing that I'm looking at right now and noticing. But yes, it is certainly something to keep in mind here. Another thing to kind of keep in mind here, as you mentioned, I didn't quite get to the average number of double bogeys. However, the par 5 6th hole at this venue in 2023 had 30 double bogeys on that hole alone.
I think John Daly accounted for half of those in just one turn.
In 1998, he probably did. And this is my proof that random tirade. This is my proof that Tin Cup is not real. You can make an 18 on a hole and they won't kick you out, but I'm supposed to believe they were going to kick him out for a 12. I digress. Great movie still. Love it.
It is so good.
But I think we have a pretty good idea of the players that we're looking at here. So I do want to head over and talk about some of those players. But before I do, got to give a shout out to WannaParlay. WannaParlay creates a fun and exciting competition that connects people. It embodies the joy of winning, the heartbreak of almost winning, and all the other emotions that you'll experience during competition. From the brains of two former Kansas State college football players, it's all about stacking legs, competing with sports lovers like you and I, and getting real cash wins every single day. You can 1,000 extra money and cash out fast. If you're ready to get in the game and flex those parlay legs, download the app for iOS or Android and get a 100% match bonus up to $250 when you use code IBT at signup. That is code IBT to get a 100% match bonus at WannaParlay. The link for that is in the episode description. But we know what you are here for. You are here to see the plays. So let's get these clubs twirling and talk about our picks for the week. Looking at the books so far, as a surprise to absolutely nobody who has paid attention to golf in the last 3 years, Scottie Scheffler sitting here as our favorite, hovering right around 300 to 1 or 300 plus 300, 3-1 odds on just about every book. Past Scottie, though, we expect him to be the favorite in every tournament that he's in right now. I do think the odds make a lot of sense. I do still think there are some values to take advantage of. But when you saw the lines go live today, what was your kind of first impression of what you saw?
I didn't love it. I felt like there were too many guys that I thought I was going to try to sneak onto the card and get some equity out of that were coming in at 50 to 1 or less. And it kind of feels like it's been, I think Scottie opened a little bit lower, a little bit closer to 300. It feels like I wasn't getting enough leverage in the middle of the book, given how much I have to give up for Scottie or Rory, who both of these guys own this golf course. And so again, I'm probably looking back at the winners without markets to try to find some value in some of the deeper plays that I want, because it's really hard. And we'll get to this when we get deeper into our picks. It's hard for me to envision a lot of these players win the golf tournament when Scottie and Rory are right there. So I actually thought it was a little too favorable. As looking at DraftKings, a little too favorable for the house in the top third of the board. But you know, that's where the winners without market has kind of been paying off this year.
For sure. And that goes for, DraftKings as well, since we're talking about it. For if you're playing in the DFS streets, playing in the without Scottie fields that are available, it's fun. It makes you feel good knowing you don't have to think about spending 14 grand for Scottie, 11 grand for Rory. Seems much more particular there. But I did notice what you saw. There is a very large contingent of players kind of falling between, call it, say it starts with Tommy Fleetwood. He's the only guy past Rory, their first guy past Rory. Rory also going off at less than 10 to 1 across most books. But from Fleetwood on DraftKings at 17.5 to 1. FanDuel is a little more favorable at 19 to 1. But going from him to Justin Thomas, who, depending on the book, is 49 to 1 all the way up to 66 to 1, depending on the books. So some of these plays, it definitely does benefit you a little bit more than it has in some recent weeks to shop these odds around a little bit. But like you said, the without markets certainly give you some advantage. There's still some players who are drastically different from one book to another. Ryan Gerard recently got a decrease over on DraftKings. But as of 4:40 p.m. today, he was 64 to 1 on DraftKings compared to 45 to 1 on FanDuel. So there's some discrepancies to take advantage of with some of the books out there. But let's start with some of the guys that we do like this week. This is a guy that you put in here. I'm going to let you have him. I'm in on him as well. Tell us a little bit about Xander Schauffele this week.
Yeah, well, Xander's already burned me once big time this year in the big Sandman Stones pool, and I'm gonna go back there. I think the last couple of weeks Xander has started to shake off the rust, and now you put him on a golf course where his stat profile really comes through. He has really emerged as a fantastic driver of the golf ball. He's always been a good ball striker with his irons, but he's emerged as a fantastic driver of the golf ball. And that's what his need is here. He was T7, T19 his last 2 times out this season. So I do think he's looking a lot better. I have him second in my model in par 5 scoring. He's an absolute monster in taking advantage of the par 5s. And like I said, a top 10 driver in the field. We know that he has thrived in tough conditions with his British Open win, as well as winning a PGA, 2 years ago, winning 2 majors in a single season. I like Xander in tough conditions. And if I'm getting him to pick up a little bit of confidence, this is a good feel for him to do it. He can go toe to toe with Scottie or Rory. I would have no problem taking Xander just outright, period, against the entire field. I think the only thing is just whether or not Xander can truly make enough birdies to outpace this field. If this becomes a shootout and we're talking 15, 16, 17 under, the one place Xander lacks is just getting himself close enough to make a lot of birdies. So it really will come down to if he's taking advantage of those par fives, he's keeping the ball in play. I think he's a great chance to be in the mix here. And I'd love taking a 22.5 or whatever you're going to get in the low 20s over Scottie or Rory for half that or less. I think Xander's a really good spot.
Yeah, best odds I was able to find on him 25-1 over at FanDuel. But like you mentioned, it's really just, can he score enough? He's about average in the field when it comes to birdies or better this year. He hasn't avoided bogeys the best, to say the least. He's sitting at 53rd in my model in bogey avoidance thus far. But like you said, this is a guy who can be a big game hunter, and certainly a guy who is appealing in outrights versus some of the guys that are higher up the board. I did get this bet in earlier, so sneak peek for anybody who is not in the IBT family. I was able to get Matt Fitzpatrick at 26-1. That number has already dropped to 21.5-1. But like I mentioned, guys who have good history here tend to continue to play well here, and guys who fit Matt Fitzpatrick's profile tend to play pretty well here. When you look at Matt Fitzpatrick's last 9 starts at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, he does have 2 missed cuts. One of those coming back when this was a 120 player event, not necessarily the shorter fields, though he did miss the cut once in 2024 with that. Past that, those 2 cuts, his finishes have been T13, runner-up, T9, T10, T9, T15, T14, and T22. The guy knows how to play Bay Hill very, very well.
You know what he specifically knows how to do? His entire career on this golf course, he has not had an outing where he has lost strokes on the greens.
Yes.
For whatever reason, he shows up here and he putts. And here's the thing about Matt Fitzpatrick, is well documented in Full Swing, wherever else we've seen him. He has transformed into a extremely long player off the tee.
Yes.
And so he's had these results. He's had these results prior to 2024 before he was this version of himself. So now you put him on a course where he's always putted well, and he gets the new Matt Fitzpatrick tee game. This is the one that might get him over the hump.
Yeah, when you scroll across my model with Matt Fitzpatrick, it's basically like through my entire model, it is Scottie, Rory, Matt Fitzpatrick as the only 3 players who are green across the board. As you mentioned, he's gained distance. That's certainly something that is helping his game. You look at him, a few years ago, his driver distance was not what it is. And not only has he picked up some distance off the tee, he's more accurate off the tee as well. Throughout his, over his last 200 rounds, he's averaged 61% driving accuracy. Over his last 16 rounds, that's up to 70.5. So he's remarkably more accurate off the tee than he has been. And this is a guy that we know is a premier ball striker as well. He's 7th in the field in strokes gained on approach. He's one of the better players. He's 16th in overall approach proximity from 200 out. So get a long iron in his hand, he feels good. Those par 3 scoring numbers that I mentioned earlier, he's top 15 in both of those pools. And he's a top 5 putter on fast Bermuda greens. Like, statistically, the dude's profile lines up with exactly what we're looking for, and being able to get him at a discount versus the 2 other guys I mentioned who are green across the board in my model, it feels really good. Even with his driving distance, he's certainly made quite a bit of a gain over that over the last few years of his career. He's still roughly around field average, but you got to remember, like, when we look at some of the short hitters in the field, like, where does a guy I've always considered a shorter hitter, Colin Morikawa, his average driving distance is still like 300 yards. Like, we have to put in perspective what being short on the PGA Tour means nowadays. And when you have long iron play that's as good as Fitzy's has been, 26-1 felt like a great number for him. I will say I don't love it as much now that it has fallen to 21. I'm definitely glad I got that play in early on the books. But if we see that number start to come back towards the 25-1 range for him, it feels like a solid value for a guy who has his course history and has the game to back up Bay Hill.
You've convinced me.
You love to see it. You might have to convince me on this next one, because I can just never convince myself to bet on this guy. But he's played really well. Tell me about Bobby MacIntyre, coming off. Best odds I was able to find on him. You entered him at 33-1. Caesars has him over at 45-1 if that book is available for you.
That's right. And I think, as I started to look through this part of the board here, I actually wrote it up as saying I'm trying to make a single choice. When at the time was this 30 to 40 range, looking at Colin, Ludvig, and Bobby Mack. And Bobby Mack has been off to a pretty good start this year. 4th at the Sony, makes his cuts at the American Express. Obviously, no cut at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and then finishes T20 at the Genesis. He's played in the Arnold Palmer Invitational twice, at 2 appearances at Bay Hill, finished T11 last year. The thing that I like about Bobby Mack is he's ranking high in my model. Again, hard, long golf courses in a couple of the ancillary things that I want to be able to see. First of all, first in my model in double bogey avoidance. We're not going to put too much weight there, but the guy is avoiding big numbers. 3rd in scrambling, and 3rd in par 5 scoring. So I've already talked about, we got to take advantage of, this is going to be a track race, even for a difficult golf tournament. We got to take advantage of those par 5s. The biggest thing here for me is that he is an average driver of the golf ball, but he's not a great long iron player. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the thing that ultimately holds him back here. And so I got to really think through this week. Again, now if I'm getting Bobby at 45-1, that's probably a better spot than 33. But I like that he's doing some of the ancillary things, especially a guy that can grind it out around the greens. If those long irons aren't clicking, but he does the Bobby Mack magic where he's getting up and down from everywhere. I think it could work. And I also am going to take a look at it in DFS when I get some tighter ownership projections. This might be a spot for me to get. I'm just going to check, where is he salary wise? Got him 9,000. This might be a spot to get a little bit of ownership break if he's a second guy in. Yeah,
and as you mentioned with the odds, like certainly the MacIntyre for me is always a player where the odds come into play. Like if I can ever find him, he's much like Colin. Like if I can ever find him in a tournament like past 50-1, I'm sprinkling something on there. Most of the books now have, as more plays have come in, the odds have shifted a little bit. DraftKings, he's 32-1, but pretty much every other major book 40-1 right now, which is still a solid number for a guy with his profile. But I mean, you said it. When you look at him in my model, it's like, okay, he's top 20, top 25, top 20, top 10, top 10, top 20, top 20, top 25. And then you get to the irons and it's like 57th, 51st. So that's going to be what could hold him back. But if those cooperate for him this week, it's all wheels up. I'm going to talk about one of the guys that was in this conversation range for you. And I've been very vocal about kind of full fading him thus far this year, both in the DFS streets and in these in the outright markets, the placement markets. Probably bet him to miss the cut more times than I bet him to finish top 20 this year. They're over the last calendar year, honestly. But Ludvig coming off 40-1. He's a guy in this range that I think his game is starting to turn around. We've now found out, much like last year during that early stretch of the season in California, he was dealing with an illness. This year, it didn't get publicized because he didn't have to withdraw from a tournament for it, but he's dealing with an illness. He's got a little bit of this 2026 Scottie Scheffler model going on right now as well, where the first round at the event is not looking great. He's bouncing back, playing very well through the weekend. But Ludvig is a guy that his game is turning around. He's gained strokes in 7 of the last 8 rounds that he's played. And when you look at him, really, he's scored really well over his last 24 rounds. He's 15th or 14th in the field in birdies or better. He's just also bottom 15 in this field in bogey avoidance. So it's going to be a matter of, can he avoid the big numbers? But Ludvig hits it far, 20th in driving distance, 17th strokes gained off the tee, top 5 in overall approach proximity from 200 plus. And he putts well on Bermuda. Is, par 3 scoring numbers are solid. It's really going to boil down to, can he avoid the big numbers? I bet if we put in the double bogey avoidance number for Ludvig this week over his last 24 or 36 rounds, probably doesn't look so good. I'll let you pop your model up real quick and fact check me on that one.
I will tell you. Bogey avoidance 57th and double bogey avoidance 58th.
Yeah. So he is certainly a guy who can make a big number. However, I'm gonna take the chance on him this week. These numbers are good. 40-1 feels good for him. You're getting that at pretty much every book out there. DraftKings has gone down to 39-1, but he also has really good history at this course. He's got 3 starts here, all top 25 finishes, maybe a bit of a better DFS play as a result, just given that we haven't seen him really compete for a win in a little while, really since, DP World Tour Championship. He was T3 there, a few top 10s to end the year as well. But, last time he was in the winner's circle was at the Genesis. I followed that up, with the T22, obviously T20 at the Genesis. Maybe we can flip those this week. Flip is 2025. He goes from a top 20 finish at the Genesis to a win here. I'll sprinkle.
It's funny how when things are going so right for any player, how we think they are suddenly invincible. And Ludvig, last year where we're watching him take his star turn and having these conversations, almost comparing him. I saw some comparisons to Bernhard Longer in sort of the mechanical way that he approaches his game, and he doesn't really let anything else enter. I mean, he plays so fast and his swing is so compact and so simple. And you start watching him and you're saying, how can this guy ever not play well? Like, he does all the things that you do to need to play elite golf. And the volatility to me is something that I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from. Obviously, something like health can play a huge factor in that. And so it brings a lot of uncertainty into the picture. I agree. Like, Ludvig becomes like a auto bet when he gets beyond 40-1 here. And that's probably why I'm not there, and I'm taking maybe more of a known commodity in Bobby Mack, and where he's less volatile.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like it's just that unknown that we just haven't seen Ludvig be Ludvig yet. But I think that's why it's a bet. You're playing for the upside here, and that he does show up for the weekend.
Yeah, he's admittedly probably the most volatile play any of us are going to take, besides one guy that we're both in on that we're going to talk about a little bit later. You'll see based on the picture that I chose for him, anything's going to go when we get down there. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's volatile. Things could go very, very wrong for us, but if they go right, it's going to feel so good.
Yeah, right on.
Speaking of volatile, Keegan Bradley, got to talk about him. I'm shocked he was a top 10 play in my model this week, but we're going to roll with it. And at 60-1, I'm really going to roll with it. When you look at Keegan's game thus far, it has not been the best. He hasn't scored a ton. He hasn't avoided bogeys either. He hasn't really played that well, kind of at all. But then you look at the actual statistics, and it starts to make a little bit of sense. He's still top 30 in the field off the tee. He's still top 10 in the field around the greens. He's the second best player in terms of overall approach proximity from 200 plus. He's great at scoring on long par threes. Strokes gained tee to green on difficult scoring condition courses. He's top 5 in the field. He's a top 25 putter in the field on Bermuda. He plays comparable courses very, very well. He's played here very, very well. He was T5 last year. His 2 other top 5 finishes here in his career. Over his last 5 years, he has 3 more T10 or T11s to go with that. And I think I'm leaning into the fact that we're getting a discount on him that we don't typically get on a player with this level of course history somewhere. There's one player that, the next guy that we talk about does have very good course history here. We are getting a discount on him for much of the same reasons we're seeing one on Keegan. The recent play just has not been great. Keegan's has been pretty bad, to be blunt. He's got 2 missed cuts this year. His best finish on the season is 29th. But this feels like a comfort zone course for him, especially over the last 5 years. So I'm going to take a shot.
And that's what you get. That's what you get with course history. With course history events is, we talked about this. We talked about this at the Genesis. Some guys they show up on courses that they're comfortable on. I think Keegan can hang if this is -5 to -8. Yep. I think that's probably his ceiling. If this is going to be -15 to -18, I don't think Keegan, like you said, I don't think he can take advantage of the par 5s the way you have to be able to win in a track meet. But I love what you're picking up, and he's always been an elite long iron player. If it's windy and it's tough conditions, yeah, you'll see him around the top 10.
Absolutely. Next guy going down the board into more of our long shot category here. We have Corey Conners coming off 78-1 on DraftKings. You can't really talk about course history without bringing up what Conners has been able to do here. Something about this Canadian, man, you get him on these, you take him from Canada, right? And then you drop him into Florida. You put him in nice tropical weather, fast Bermuda greens. And we're looking at a guy who is, sandwiched between two third place finishes here is T18, T21, T11. Like the guy's got the history here, much like Keegan hasn't played well this year, but what made him pop in your model?
First of all, it's the 5 straight top 21s, the 2/3. He has owned this golf course. Second in, I believe he's got the second best history here in the field this week, strokes gained at Bay Hill. Top 15 in the field in both driving and long iron play. Corey Conners has always been a great ball striker. He has typically captained Team No Putt year to year. And that's why I was shocked to find him 14th in my model in strokes gained putting on fast Bermuda greens. And that 14th isn't, second or third or fourth, but it's better than where I thought he would be.
Yeah, and it was not what I expected.
And so it's okay. Over the last, 24 rounds, if Corey Conners is actually starting to get things figured out on these surfaces, that's a really good spot to be in, typically because he hasn't actually ever putted well here. So he has all these great finishes. I mean, yes, the 2 years that he finished third, he was gaining, 2 strokes over the course of the event on the greens, but he's lost. He's finished in the top 20 and lost 2 strokes here. So yep. I love his off the tee game at this golf course. I love his approach play at this golf course. We know he can play well in tough conditions, plays well on comp courses. I'm looking for him to own that top 14 putting statistic on fast Bermuda greens this week. And I think we're in shape. I do think he's going to be straight chalk in DFS at $6,900. Yep. So 78-1, honestly, like when I first went looking at the board, I was hoping to find him triple digits, but I think 78 is a good number for a guy that's finished third here twice in the last 5 years. Plenty of opportunity to take down one of the big dogs.
Yeah. And I think part of what makes Conners so intriguing here is, admittedly, he's like such an average player for most of the year. Like you'll see him in contention every once in a while. It's not surprising to see him like on a cut line. You put him on difficult scoring condition courses and he's 6th in the field in strokes gained tee to green on difficult courses. There's something about players rising to the occasion. You give them a true test like this and something shows up, and Conners has clearly shown up here for the last 5 years. Going back to a well that I went all in on last week, it didn't work out, except in DFS. It did work out, so I'll give myself some props there. Nicolai Hojgaard, 66-1. Now these odds have already dropped. He's 63-1 on DraftKings. Another one I'm glad I got in a little early on, but a guy who we talk about what works at this course. Hit it far, hit it straight off the tee, hit your long irons really well. We just described Nicolai Hojgaard. 4th in strokes gained approach, 4th in driving distance, 16th in strokes gained off the tee, tied with Keegan for second overall in the field, or second in the field for overall from 200 plus. Plays the long par threes incredibly well, is the leading scorer in the field when the par threes get past 225 yards, top 15 in that 200 to 225 yard range. Putts well enough, about field average. He just tends to struggle sometimes on difficult courses. And can he buck that trend this week? I sure hope so. He's missed the cut in his 2 starts here in his career, but not often in his career has he come into the event off of finishes of T6, T3, T22. We're not normally getting this good of a Nicolai Hojgaard at the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
I think that's the key. And when you look back at just the course history, you often have to go back to those years and look at the context around those events. He is probably in the best stretch of his PGA Tour time right now, and I think that matters a lot for confidence going into a difficult event. 1 is a great number, where he's just coming off an event where he was one of the favorites to start the week.
Yep.
And frankly, I'd like to see Nicolai with a little bit of the Nicolai swagger, like get that shirt untucked a little bit from Torrey Pines a few years ago and just let it rip. He typically has not putted well at Bay Hill, but I do think after his T6 finish last week, he's clearly got something figured out on the Bermuda greens. Hopefully he's able to overcome that. I think this is a fine play.
Yeah, he's gained strokes with the putter in 4 straight events, which is the longest streak of his professional career, gaining strokes with the putter. I'm going to trust that he is feeling good with the putter in his hand right now. He also had a phenomenal week with the irons over the last 2 events. The driver, as we mentioned, he hits it a mile and he hits it straight. That's going to play at a course like Bay Hill. But like you mentioned, going back in 2022, the first time he missed the cut here, he went miscut, won on the DP World Tour, cut. So it's not surprising that he missed the cut there. And then looking at him in 2024, when he missed the cut here, he did have a second place finish at the Farmers that year. Some solid play at Pebble and the Genesis Open, played the Mexico Open, the alternate field event in February of that year, came T52 there and then cut. Like, again, the play going into the event was nowhere near the Nicolai that we're getting currently. And I'm going to take a shot. He's going to hurt me again. I feel it. I feel it in my loins, but I'm going to ride it out. And speaking of an untucked shirt, what a great transition that you set us up for. We're both in on Joel Dahmen this week.
I'm so happy to hear that you I was like, I'm going to have some fun with this one. Like, this is Joel Dahmen really winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational, but gosh darn it, at 260 to 1, that would be really fun.
His game is trending in the direction, and it's not like he's got a T5, a top 5 finish here. It's not like he sucks at Bay Hill. Was I surprised to remember that he was in the field? Absolutely. Because it's Joel Dahmen. You never know what you're going to get with Joel Dahmen week in and week out. But the man has 2 top 10 finishes this year.
Exactly right. And not just 2 top 10 finishes, but I know we're going to, we can hate on PGA National, but it's still a difficult golf tournament, as is showing up at the Farmers at Torrey Pines. So keep in mind, 2 top 10s in his last 3 events on fairly challenging golf courses. And that's what it's going to be here. Look, Joel is not the longest player here, but he has a much improved driver of the golf ball. I have him in my model at 11th in total driving. And so that's good enough for me to say, okay, he's given himself a little bit of higher floor off the tee. He's typically a safe player. He's going to avoid big scores. He's going to keep the ball in play. His iron play can be a little streaky, but again, we're looking for upside at 260 to 1. We're saying Joel Dahmen is probably playing the best golf he's played in the last 5 years. He's played well here before. He's riding a hot streak, and he's got some of the tools to do it. It's just, can the things that have typically held him back, if those things are average, if he's an average iron player this week, I would not be surprised to see him hanging around the first page of the leaderboard. And he's a great opportunity. I'm trying to go grab the number here. He's a great opportunity to go in a winner without market, because you could definitely see Joel Dahmen being, he's plus 210 without Scottie. Like, could you see Dahmen finishing second or T2 to Scottie Scheffler? Absolutely. So I like him in a winner without market. If you can find a few more bodies to put in that pool, I think that would be really interesting for me.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, really became one of, if not the most accurate driver of the golf ball in the last 6 months. And I say that knowing full well, I'm looking at the stats over the last 6 months on all courses. He is the most accurate driver in the field. He has the lowest distance from the edge of the fairway in the field. He isn't fighting a 2-way miss like some players are, or, he doesn't have a drastic miss. Like Scottie in the field is 56th in the field in a tendency to miss left off the tee. Joel Dahmen's 3rd. You go over to the right side, missing it right, he's 15th. Like, we're talking about a guy who is hitting the driver probably better than he has at any point in his career. He's coming off of a phenomenal week with the irons. we've seen him have good weeks with the wedges. He's typically played fairly okay around the greens here. Like if he can putt a little bit, maybe you don't have confidence in him at 250, 260 to 1 for an outright. Fair, completely fair. You can get him plus 460 to finish top 20.
Yeah, that almost feels like a lock, honestly.
At minimum,
as good as
I'm
he's
there.
playing. Yeah.
But yeah. There comes a point where even in a super predictive course, that recent play impacts a course almost as much as the course history does. You can be a guy like another guy with phenomenal course history, Sung J M, a guy who in his career here has never missed the cut, has never finished worse than 21st in the field. But he's also coming off of a 5-month layoff from golf, his first test back, signature event, strong field. Like, knowing that we haven't seen him play recently, we don't know that we can confidently say he can continue to put up a top 20 finish here. But a guy like Dahmen, who has multiple top 10s on courses that if you and I went there right now, we'd be happy to break 95, I think. I'm taking a shot.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it'll be fun. I'm curious to see what the DFS ownership projections are going to come out as, and if anyone else is sort of picking up on this. But 260 is a fun number to pick up, Joel, and it's a great guy to cheer for.
Yeah, you can't not love him. The dude had brain cancer. He's had kids. He's fighting for his tour card every year, and he's putting himself in a great position early on in the year to not have to fight for it again in 2026 into 2027. But guys, that is the sad part of the show for us. We have to head on out. But Mike, why don't you go ahead and remind the people where they can find you in your work?
Yeah, working here in between, showing up for the 19th hole every now and then. Plus, you can check out Reading the Green on Twitter as well. We do some expert consensus predictions around and some modeling around that. So hit me up at Mount Coase, and looking forward to a fun event.
Yes, sir. You can find me on Twitter at Parry_FF. If you guys like the video, make sure to like the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed to just the In Between Media channel, that is no longer enough. The 19th hole, we have our own channel now. So make sure you get that subscription in for us. If you guys want more access to us, more of our model, more of the betting cards that we put together, make sure to join the IBT Golf family in Between Media. .com/chat or the link in the episode description below. But guys, that has been another week of the 19th hole, and we will see you all for our next tee time.